What's going on, guys? Aarava here. Welcome back to my Let's Talk F1 series, the series where I get to talk about real-life Formula 1 over the course of the season. Of course, this is for the 2016 season. As you can see by the title on screen, today we're going to be discussing the Mclaren MP4-31, the 2016 Challenger from McLaren. And straight away, guys, I want to know your opinions in the comments below. What do you guys think of the livery and the general look of the car? Let me know if you like it or hate it. Either way, let me know in the comments below. But we're going to look at this very evolutionary McLaren Honda car, because straight away it does have a lot of a similar look to its predecessor, the MP430, and it very much is kind of maybe a refinement and evolution. At least on the exterior of the car, it very much looks like an evolution of last year's car, but under the cover, Honda have been working very hard on their new power unit and have apparently really improved efficiency. We'll get back to that later, but we're going to be looking at the actual car detail itself. I've circled through what I can pick out on this overview shot of the McLaren, so we're going to go from right to left and work through from the front wing. Obviously, McLaren have stuck with the stubby sort of nose, similar to the Ferrari and the Williams car. Obviously, McLaren debuted that nose last year at Austria, and they've pretty much kept the same design concept ever since Austria. Now, in terms of trends in F1 in 2016, you'll be seeing two different trends in terms of the front end. Either this kind of finger nose that McLaren and Ferrari have adopted and Williams did have, or the Mercedes style kind of really short, narrow nose, which Mercedes do have again on their new 2016 car, which that video is coming later today. And also the Williams are upgrading to that shorter nose by the time they get to Melbourne. Staying with the nose area of the McLaren, you can also see to the left of the actual nose, I've circled that little slot gap in the middle of the pylon that connects the front wing plane to the actual, front wing nose cone part. That slot gap will help improve airflow underneath the car. If any air goes into that slot gap, it will get pushed out to underneath the car to those turning vanes you see right underneath the suspension arms. In terms of the front wing, it's a launch spec front wing. I'm assuming that will change towards when we get to actually Melbourne. You see quite a lot of trends in Formula 1 in terms of when they launch the cars. The front wings are very simple. They're not entirely the thing they'll turn up with at Melbourne. Obviously, as they go through testing one, the first part they'll do is reliability, so the front wing complexity is maybe not the first thing they're thinking about as they hit the ground running. Moving back along the car, you can see the blown wheel nut on the McLaren car. So like I mentioned in the Ferrari video, I think Ferrari, who ran the blown wheel nut last year, will be running that again. And the same with McLaren. McLaren ran the blown wheel nut the entirety of last year, and they've gone with that yet again. If you missed the Ferrari video, basically the blown wheel nut allows air to go through the brake ducts, goes straight to through the wheel hub, and actually gets passed out straight through that hole and cleans up airflow on the side of the car. Moving to the right of the wheel, obviously towards the top of the chassis, you can see I've outlined the S duct, which looks a little bit larger to me, but it looks like maybe they should have refined it a little bit, and just the placement makes it look a little bit larger. But obviously the McLaren has run an S duct pretty much since the beginning of last season. Near enough, I think it was Australia they debuted it. The S duct, as its name kind of suggests, is an S-shaped channel that kind of basically starts off from the underneath of the car and kind of swoops up in an S shape and kind of finishes off at the top of the chassis. This allows any air that goes into that duct right at the bottom underneath the car to be pushed up to the top of the car, and it's very smooth and clean, and it kind of smoothens up the entire air surface above the chassis, makes efficiency a lot better for the airflow, because there's a lot of turbulence, especially with the amount of wake the tires will give off. It kind of cleans up that air on the top of the chassis. Moving back to the rear end of the McLaren, you can see that they've gone with a very skinny rear end once again, the size 0, which McLaren dubbed last season, and they've stuck with that philosophy, and the philosophy that Ferrari sort of copied in their new design of their 2016 Challenger. So they've still stuck with that, and obviously they've improved efficiency with the Honda engine. They've actually even increased the turbine size in the power unit. So it's very impressive that they've still kept with that philosophy, and they haven't felt the need to widen the car, because we do know from last year, obviously there were some overheating issues, especially with the ERS system not deploying fully. So it's quite impressive that they're still, very confident in themselves in terms of keeping that size 0 packaging. So that, at least personally to me, that brings a bit of confidence in what Honda have done over the winter. But obviously this is all very much speculation. We will see what happens day one of testing. I've also circled right at the rear end the exhaust. As you can see, there's a clear, tiny little tailpipe right on the end of that huge one. So again, that is the Mickey Mouse exhaust pipe. There's actually a picture here from the McLaren launch video that clearly shows what I was talking about in the Ferrari video as well, the Mickey Mouse exhaust. So those two smaller ends are the wastegate ones, and the main huge one is the main actual exhaust itself. And then onto the rear wing, you can see McLaren have kept those slats that they introduced pretty much all the way from 2000 2014 Germany, they've kept those slats through the entirety of these like last kind of 1.5 years. The slats will basically allow air to kind of be pushed up and create a net downforce at the end of the car. Moving on to a side view of the McLaren car, I've circled again the blown wheel just to make an emphasis on that. Also on the rear wing, you can see that a bit more detail on those strakes coming up through the Hilton logo, and also you can see a few little slot gap bumps almost on the very top edge, you know, towards before you get to the slats. So some interesting little details on this car, and that's something that Alonso picked up in the interview for the launch of this car, that McLaren have focused on the detailing of the aerodynamic package, and that he's confident in terms of the little details, the amount of actual detail they've gone into on every little bit of the actual aerodynamic package around the car is pretty good. So that's quite interesting to actually see. I haven't actually seen those sort of like little bump arrays yet in Formula 1. And also just a little thing, I might be wrong here in terms of the side pod, but to me, comparing this to last year's car, to last year's launch spec, and also last year's car when they changed the livery to this sort of black and red, it looks to me like at the rear end, not at the very bottom of the side pod, but more further up as you get towards the Honda logo. It looks like, to me at least, it might be the lighting that's tricking my eyes, but it looks like to me they've done a little bulge, just a little bit of a tinier bit of a bulge round underneath the Honda logo. So that maybe suggests that's maybe where the turbine is housed in the engine part, or that's where they've placed maybe some of the kind of starting of the radiators, so it gets a bit wider there as it then extends off. Obviously the radiator extends off down the side pod. So to me it looked like there's maybe a bulge, but I could be completely wrong. That could just be the lighting. And then we get to the top down view. Again, you can see the kind of stub nose highlighted there and the S duct, which to me still looks a little bit larger, looks a little bit more aggressive there. I like the look of it. And when we go to the rear floor, you can see the slot gaps that I mentioned in the Ferrari video on Friday. Ferrari were the ones that started off doing a few 1 and 2 slot gaps, and then last year McLaren copied that design and took it to a new extreme with about 8 or 9 slot gaps, and again they kind of stuck with the same thing, and even Ferrari themselves have then copied what McLaren did and added about 9 or 8 slot gaps on the very end. The slot gaps allow some vortices to be made that clean up air between the rear tyre and the rear wing. It kind of creates almost like a vacuum seal between that area to stop tyre wake getting in the middle of the diffuser flow, so that allows the diffuser to work a lot more efficiently. And again, from this view you can see the Mickey Mouse kind of exhaust. You can see just you have the main tube of the exhaust, and you can clearly see the 2 smaller ones either side of the car. And again, you get to see that really nice size 0 McLaren. It's a really lovely looking design in terms of the way McLaren and Ferrari have gone about it. And to me also it looks a bit strange, but McLaren almost looks like it gets a bit wider than the car body itself, the actual floor of the car. It looks like the side pods extend out a little bit more than the Ferrari did. But also if we look at a comparison of the Ferrari and the McLaren, they look very, very similar, but I think just about the McLaren looks a little bit slimmer in terms of right at the rear end. It gets slimmer. The Ferrari though looks like it does get actually slimmer earlier on into the side pod, which suggests Ferrari have moved quite a lot of the components forward, whereas McLaren have kept it a little bit further back. But the McLaren looks like it does pinch that little bit more right at the rear end. But both very, very lovely looking, and that sense of like the size 0 looks like it's becoming a trend almost within Formula 1. So that has been my first analysis of the McLaren MP4-31. I'm sure there'll be more to talk about in the coming weeks with the testing going on. But guys, again, let me know what you think of the car. Do you like the livery? Do you like the general look of it? And what do you think and hope for McLaren? If you're a McLaren fan, what do you hope for this season? Obviously, you guys know I'm a Jenson Button fan, so I'm hoping that it can be a good testing season. I'm just hoping that the McLaren car doesn't break down so much. But again, guys, if you have enjoyed this video, found it informative, smash that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. And remember, guys, if you're new around here and you do want to see more car analysis videos of most of the Formula 1 cars launching, then do get subscribed here. This is going to be a year-long series. We're going to be discussing things every single race weekend, so get subscribed if you want to see that. You guys will want to keep an eye out on the channel for later today. There's going to be 2 more analysis videos coming up later today on this Sunday. The Mercedes W07 and the Haas F1 car, which is launching at 2 p.m. GMT. And the Mercedes car has already been launched as I'm recording this, so that will be coming as fast as I can after this one. So keep an eye out on those 2. Hopefully you guys will enjoy those as well. I'm really looking forward to the Haas livery and the way that it looks, because obviously it's a brand new team, you know, the American team in Formula 1. It's going to be very exciting to see what they come up with, obviously with the Ferrari partnership. So be sure to be subscribed if you're new around here for those two videos coming up. And obviously, I will be discussing, the cars like Manor, Force India, Toro Rosso, Red Bull when they actually fully launch their car in the coming days when testing starts on Monday. But yeah, hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Hope you enjoyed the rest of your day. I've been aarava. Hope you see you guys next time. Goodbye.